one of the issues that we have here is we're largely going about thinking about AI, maybe in the wrong way. I don't mean to start with a negative tone, but I do feel like we're sort of missing the boat a little bit. And here's what I mean. We're working with districts across the country on this issue, and almost always the first question that we get is a question about how do we stop cheating, right? It's just generally where it starts. And so let's just put that out of the way for a second. And I know that's an important question, and I know we need to talk about it. But if your worry is about cheating, the problem isn't AI. The problem is the quality of your assessments. I don't know how else to say it. It just and we have for a long time put up with pretty crappy assessments, and we've put up with them in part because I guess we've been able to. And so AI and ChatGPT really isn't causing a problem with your assessments. It's just shining a spotlight on assessments that aren't very good. And so if we want to fix those, we can talk about that. That's probably another conversation. There's lots of great resources that AASA has. ISTE and ASCD has a ton of resources that we can help you to think about how to do more authentic assessments. But if your concern is, hey, how do we stop cheating? Probably the most important thing that you can do is pause for a minute and talk about, are there some better assessment approaches? What I want to shift to a little bit are what I think are some better questions. I think there are some more important questions that we need to be asking. And I'm actually gonna share 5 skills that I'm going to be sharing in a couple weeks. In 2 weeks, we have an event called ISTE Live. It's our big event where we bring everybody together in the summer. And I'm going to be sharing 5 skills that I think we need to be thinking about bringing into schools in this AI-infused world. But what I really wanted to do is jump into share these 5 skills that I think we need to be thinking about. And then I'll point you to some resources that might help. The first is, we need to be understanding what AI is. So I'm talking about the role of school leaders, so superintendents and to some extent principals. This is really what we need to be. These are the skills that we need to be talking about. I worry that we are, we're not talking enough about what it really is. And it starts to feel like AI is magic. So our mantra for this work is AI is not magic. Magic is something mysterious that you can't control. AI is neither one of those things. But it's critical that we talk about what it really is. And when we understand what it really is and how it works and how it's based, it makes it much easier to then figure out how it can be helpful and how it can't be. By the way, really quickly, there's a bunch of different types of AI. I hope you all know this. But the generative AI, which is what we're largely talking about here today, are essentially I'm giving you the 30-second crash course on what AI actually is, right? So AI, there's a model, a language model. It's usually a large database of content. It could be a bunch of documents, could be a bunch of websites, could be a bunch of stuff on the web. And then there's a model where a computer is trained to make meaning out of that. And then apps can be built on top of those models. So ChatGPT is one app. It's why I laugh when schools often say, well, we're going to block AI. No, you're not. You can't. It's like saying we're going to block electricity. Like you can't. It's not a thing to be blocked. There may be apps that you're blocking. You may choose to block specific apps, and that's fine. But if you're saying we're blocking AI, like that's not possible. It's infused throughout most of the web at this point. And so just being really clear about what AI is, I think, is really helpful for making more meaningful conversations. The second skill, and I'm going to move through this fast, but I hope you'll get the idea of it. The second skill is we need to be helping young people understand what it means to generate solutions with AI. I spent a long time working for a company called IDEO. IDEO is a company that does a lot of companies will come and say, hey, build us a great new product or great new idea. And they pay IDEO a lot of money because they're very creative. And IDEO has some special processes. But the main reason that IDEO is so impactful is that where we think about 2 or 3 possible solutions and then pick one, the IDEO teams come up with 100, 200 solutions and then pick one. And my point being that most innovation is not just because somebody is inherently brilliant. It comes from people who are able to push to brainstorm 20, 30, 40 possible solutions and then come up with an idea. That's the most powerful thing that AI can do, because coming up with 20, 30, 40 solutions is very time consuming. Most of us don't have that much time in our lives to do. But when we can learn to outsource solution generation to AI, it can be very powerful. So we can say, look, we'll come up with a couple, 2, 3 solutions. We're going to let AI come up with 8, 9, 10, 20 solutions, and then we're going to pick what's the right one. That's a really powerful skill that young people today are going to need to have in order to go into learning in life in the future. And that brings me to the third skill, which is we need to be preparing, look, every kid that's going to graduate from your schools, they're going to go work on teams where not all members of their team are human. And we need to be preparing them for what that means. What does it mean when a peer member of your team is AI? What does it mean when a subordinate is AI? What does it mean when you are working for AI? And truly, I can tell you today cases of all of those things that are happening in the workforce. And so I think it's really critical that we talk about what those skills are and what does that mean. 2 more. Skill number 4, we need to be talking about teaching concepts over, sorry, I told you this is draft. I'm working on this as we speak. We'll just edit my presentation as we go. I should have said that AI made these slides and blamed it on AI. I missed the chance to do that. Anyway, so skill 4 is teaching concepts and curation over content creation. So school today, if you look at the design of school today, it is almost entirely based around content creation. I have to write a paper. I have to come up with an answer to a math problem. I have to come up with a book report, a project. But it's interesting to think about moving forward, how important in the world is it going to be that we can create our own content? I don't know. I have a hunch that it will be far more important to understand the basic concepts in order to curate what content that is created by AI or somebody else is more valuable for us in our circumstances. That's a big shift. And so when you think about, do we need, does value come from me creating everything myself? We get really bent around the axle in schools about saying, was that your work? Is any work really our work? Honestly, all the work, my wife is a musician, and she talks about composers, and we come up with our newly composed music. Any music that's been composed in at least in the Western world is basically some regurgitation of Bach and Beethoven, right? Yes, you're mixing it up. Yes, you're matching it up. But I think we have maybe an oversampled sense of what is unique work, when really most of what we're generating is just a mix-up or a mashup of information that we've taken in from others. I think that's okay. It's just a different skill set, right? It's a skill set of knowing when to recognize value in content over necessarily creating it from scratch. And the last skill, and I know I'm moving very quickly here, but the last skill is we need to learn to be better at being human. We have had, hundreds of thousands of years of having a monopoly on decision-making, on higher level thinking, on creativity. And all of a sudden, we're in a world where we aren't the only ones who can have those skills. But the problem is when you have a monopoly on skills like that, you don't spend time recognizing what uniquely human skills are. I wrote a book about a year ago called Digital for Good, and it talks about how we can help young people grow up in a digital world. And one of the questions that I asked is, what's the value of being human in a digital world? And I didn't mean it sarcastically. I mean it very literally. What value do humans bring? I think most of us, including most of our teachers, can't answer that question. And I think we need to be able to answer it. I think there are some very unique skills. I think curating is one of them. I think empathy and love and creativity. These are some critical human skills that are never going to be able to be outsourced. But if we can recognize that those are the unique skills and double down on them, then we are actually using our time to be emphasizing and building the muscles for those skills that really are the ones that aren't going to be replaced. And right now, I think we're sort of confused about that. So those are just 5 skills that I think there are 5 questions that I would encourage you to be asking with your teams when it comes to thinking about AI. Let me quickly share one other thing here, and that is some resources, some places that you can go if you'd like to learn more. And we'll talk more about it. I know we'll do a discussion at the end, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. So look, if you go to ISTE.org/AI, it's faster to do that. It's just ISTE.org/AI, and I'll throw it in the chat. ISTE.org/AI. You'll get to this page. It's where we have all of our stuff. We have these great guides. These are guides that we created for elementary, secondary. They're one for science and one for elective educators in secondary. They're in English, Spanish, and Arabic, if there's anybody on the call that needs that. And they're just a great series of activities that can be done to help teach AI concepts in the classroom. So please take advantage of those. Don't create them from scratch. They're totally free. You can use them. We also have a bunch of resources down below, and a really amazing course called Artificial Intelligence Explorations. We've taken thousands of educators through this. We're actually working closely with New York City Public Schools. Part of why there was some change there was in part because we just took a big cohort of educators through this. So please take a look at that if it's helpful. And then the last tip that I'll say before I stop and hand the microphone over here is, right now, I think a lot of schools are rushing to come up with their policies on what exactly should and shouldn't be allowed for AI, and that's fine. But I would encourage you to pause for a minute and make sure you're taking time to explore what AI really is. So I've talked to school leaders. You guys, you hopefully will laugh and roll your eyes, and if you do, that's okay. I've talked to school leaders that have asked me to review their policy for AI, and I've said, have you explored? I can tell from reading it that they've never played around with AI before. I said, have you played with it yourself? And they say no. And so I hand it back to them, and I say, I will read it after you have spent 5 hours exploring different types of AI. And that's the thing you need to do. So my team, we have about 200 people on my team. We took a whole day a number of months ago. We took Friday, canceled all of our meetings, and we said, this is an exploration day for AI tools. And you can't just explore ChatGPT. It's great that you've played around with ChatGPT. Hallelujah. Glad you've looked at it. ChatGPT is one of thousands of tools that you should be looking at. There are tools like AI Lesson, which generates full lessons. There are full course generators. There are great tools that generate images. If you haven't played around with tools like Midjourney or DALL-E 2 or things like that, it is just critical that you're taking time to explore what these options are before trying to come up with your policies. And so I would say probably it is far more important right now to be asking good questions with your teams than to be coming up with good answers. And the more you can be doing that, the more you can as school leaders be focusing on what those questions should be. The better off you will be. Encourage those. The best schools that we've seen are ones that they've gone in and said, we're going to take a faculty meeting, we're going to take an hour, and you're going to explore 4 different ways to use AI. Great. Then at the next meeting or next time we're going to come back, and you're going to share what worked, what didn't, try to push the limits of it, and see where there's benefit. And then having school leaders that actually find those best practices that their teachers or principals are using, and share those out, right? Our role has got to be helping to understand this technology and not try to make quick, rash decisions about it. Let me end with a final thought there. And I know we still have a little more time, but I'll open it up. If you have questions, for those of you that are on Zoom and want to throw some questions, please feel free to do that. And otherwise, we'll have more of a Q&A at the end. But my last thought is, education leaders can't afford to sit this one out. I have a number of school leaders that I've heard say things like, well, it's evolving too quickly. We're just going to sit this one out and wait, and we'll see what happens. That is the worst possible thing that you could do. This is a technology that we are still shaping. We are very actively shaping it. We're working very closely with OpenAI, which is the company that makes ChatGPT. We're working closely with Google, with Microsoft, and we're giving them feedback from the education community on a regular basis about what they can do. And what I have said is the best, when we get to AI, when we get to a version of AI that's a little more stable, that's not changing all the time, right? When we get a little more built out, I want to have educator fingerprints all over it. I want it to be loaded with educator fingerprints. And if we don't do that, if we don't get involved now and shape the development of this, it will be an enormous missed opportunity, and something that I think we will all, frankly, pay the price for. I'm very optimistic about AI. I'm very optimistic about what we need to do, but we have to be involved in the process. And right now, that means that you need to be talking with your schools, with your leaders, with your teachers, about what does this mean? How can you use it? And expanding that horizon, expanding that vision beyond ChatGPT into a variety of other tools. I'll give you one little quick hint, a preview of coming attractions. We're very excited at ISTE and ASCD about training our own AI tools in order to be customized for education content. I can't say a whole lot more about that now. I'll say more, stay tuned in 2 weeks at our event where you'll hear more about what we're doing. But right now, the tools that we have are generic. They're generic. They're based on learning models that are generic from the web. And I think this gets really exciting when we start to think about AI tools that are trained specifically on education content. Okay, I have talked for too long. Let me pause there. I'm very excited to do Q&A with you afterwards, but I hope that my takeaway message is right now we need to explore and be moving away from talking about whether or not we need to worry about cheating to a much deeper conversation, which is how are we preparing our young people to thrive and to lead in a world that is AI infused?
Yeah.